And we are recording, and we are ready to join the former voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies, Bill Roth, current voice at ESPN. Bill, how you doing?
Bill, unmute.
There we go. He's unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
So I see Ian. I'd want everybody to introduce himself.
Oh, sure.
Aiden, I know. But Aiden, you can introduce yourself if you'd like.
Well, I know Aiden. You and Aiden know each other very well. I'm happy to finally kind of meet you in a sense, Bill. I've heard so much about you from Aiden in the program down there at Virginia Tech. And Aiden said that you had invited, I guess, me and him to a football game this fall. And I hope we have football this fall down there in Virginia. That would be such an awesome opportunity. I just want to thank you for what you've done for Aiden and helping him out and what you're doing for young broadcasters with this seminar like this. And I guess to introduce myself, I'm Ian Nicholas from New Canaan, Connecticut.
Ian Nicholas, New Canaan, Connecticut. All right. Nice to meet you. Who's next?
Who else?
All right, can I go? All right, hey, Mr. Roth. I'm Dylan Pescatore. I'm classmates with Ian at New Canaan High School. I'm a senior, so I'm going to Arizona State next year to continue my career in as a broadcaster. And yeah, same thing. I mean, Aiden's been talking you up the past few weeks, really, and honestly, I feel like it's a great experience now to meet you and just listen to all the experience that you have and gain that in my mind.
Okay. So you're a senior in high school. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Going to Arizona State. I knew that. All right. Who's next?
I'm Jake Baskin. I'm the host of A Shot and a Goal podcast. I am from Fairfield County, town withheld, Connecticut. I work for Northeast Sports Network, which covers NESCAC athletics. I mostly do play-by-play at Amherst for a variety of different sports. And you're a Pittsburgh guy, so I'm actually having a Pittsburgh native guest next week on my podcast, Bob McKelliger from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who's
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. All right. And what year are you, Jake?
I'm still in college, but I'm 23 years old. I'm going to finish it up at a school that I don't feel like publicizing on a recording yet until everything's finalized.
Okay. Good enough. All right.
I'm going to go down the list and start unmuting people. Alex Burstein.
Hi, I'm Alex Burstein. As Aiden said, I'm a freshman at Lane Tech High School in Chicago, where I do the sports basketball games and hopefully football and baseball if we have sports next year, and just trying to learn more about sports broadcasting and get more into that.
Nice to meet you, Alex.
All right, how about Ben Rosen? Ben, you with us? Ben, you here?
I don't see it.
Oh, hang on. You're unmuted, Ben.
I'm a sophomore at Fishers High School, going to be a junior.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Ben. All right.
How about Carlo Jimenez?
Hi, Bill. I'm a freshman at USC, and I've been calling games there. I had a great opportunity to call some games there this season before coronavirus hit, and I'm excited to learn from you this afternoon.
Great. Is that everybody? Jake, Alice, Dizen, Dylan, Ben,
John Morris out of Penn State. I know John.
Hey, yeah, Aiden, thanks for putting this together. My name is John Gross. I graduated from Penn State last year, and I just finished my first year as the play-by-play broadcaster at UNC Pembroke.
Excellent. Nice to meet you, John.
Nice to meet you, Bill. Thanks for hopping on. Looking forward to learning from you.
We've got Kyle. You're still here, right?
Hello, my name is Kyle DeSantis. I am a senior at Brewster High School, which for reference is about an hour north of New York City. I will be attending Ithaca College in the fall for sports media.
Excellent. The Blue Bombers.
We've got another Kyle, right?
I'm Kai Dombach, and my goodness, you all are making me feel old. I went to the University of Maryland from 2009 to 2013, and I am currently in Germany, and I am a Bundesliga announcer for Deutsche Welle, which is Germany's international public broadcaster.
Excellent. That is fantastic.
Nick Broyden.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Nick Broyden. I'm a rising senior at Blacksburg High School. Bill, sorry, he just up at ESPN here, and I sometimes go out to his classes. But I'm really looking forward to making a career with sports broadcasting. I work at a radio station just downtown of here, and it's really fun. And I'm looking forward to learning more from you, Bill.
All right, that's basically everybody. We may have people coming in as we continue, but that's basically everybody. Bill, what we did with Steven was we had him introduce himself for a little bit. I know a lot of these people will know you, but if you want to give us a brief summary of your career and how you ended up where you are right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Aiden, and thanks everybody for coming by today. I feel great about the future of our profession, which is changing, and it's probably different today than it was pre-pandemic, right? The first week in February, all professions were different back then. But I feel so good about the future because of people like you. I mean, I would highly recommend at some point everybody do a group gallery, take a screenshot, because in 15 years or less, someone's going to be on network television or the voice of a team that's in this WebEx meeting right now. I can guarantee it, because you guys have the passion. And, a lot of this business is luck. A lot of it is talent. But like anything, it's passion. And you guys have it. I know Aiden, and I know Nick, and I follow some of you on social media. And so you guys, we're all kind of the same. We're going down the same highway. I just kind of went down the highway a few years ago. And I didn't have opportunities like this. I mean, so I'm really excited to visit with you guys today, because you guys are going to be so much ahead of the curve from where I was, or even where people were 5 years ago, coming out of high school, coming out of college, or even if you're out, because there's so many new things now. And I'll give you an example. So, and we talk about this in one of my classes at Virginia Tech, is that, everyone understands that this is like the iPhone 11, right? Well, that means 12 years ago, this didn't exist. And so 12 years ago, if you went to a group of guys or young ladies who wanted to be sportscasters and you talked about mobile apps and OTT services and cutting tapes on your phone or doing podcasts, you would get looked at a total blank stare. It's easier than ever now to improve. And some of you guys already have your resume reels, which is dynamite. So anyway, that's my long way of saying I'm really excited about the future of the business because of people like you and what you guys are doing. But much like you, I always wanted to be a broadcaster. I was a very below-average athlete. I joke that I had deceptive speed in high school. I was a lot slower than I looked, and there was no chance for me to be a pro college athlete. And my heroes were always sports broadcasters. And I was really lucky growing up in Pittsburgh at a time when the Pirates and Steelers were both really, really good, very popular, and had some of the most popular players and enigmatic, exciting players that are even today. Like, you guys weren't born when Terry Bradshaw was playing or Lynn Swann, but you guys know their names and you know who they are. And the Pirates won the World Series and the Steelers won 4 Super Bowls, so it was a really cool time to be a kid. And the broadcasters in Pittsburgh were really good to me. Mike Lang, the voice of the Penguins, when I was in high school, would get together with me. We'd have about every 2 or 3 months, we'd get together at a place. You guys in New England might remember this chain called Friendly's. Does anyone remember Friendly's?
Sure.
Still exists.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's one in Fairfield.
Okay. It's a New England thing, and so there was one in Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's still there, but we would meet on Saturday mornings, and Mike would have his newspaper, and he was so huge to me as a, like a 9th grader, 10th grader, because he was like my hero. I'm going to have to plug my laptop in here. I'm getting a low battery life. Hang on. Maybe.
While Bill plugs in his laptop, quick shameless plug. Bill was on episode, I think 7.
I think 7, yeah.
That's available if you go on to follow Jake and I on Twitter, we'll tell you when we're going to do another one of these. I am at Aiden_blank10, and at On the Air PXP is the show's account. But Bill was on episode 7, so if you want more stories very much like this, we had a really good, nice long conversation. If you need something to do, that's a good learning experience.
Aiden's a very good interviewer. He asks very good questions. But so anyway, when I was a kid your age, Mike Lang was kind of my guy. And listen to my stuff. What can I do? And it's so funny. At least half, maybe more than half of his advice had nothing to do with broadcasting. It was about working hard and keep grinding. And kind of what Steven said before. You know, you get a lot of no's in a business like this. Like people telling you no. And so the same things that you would tell an actor or an actress or a singer in Hollywood who auditions for part after part, or Broadway, for those of you in the New York area, I'm sure you know people that are like this, that they're really good and they're really talented, but there's only one lead role in a play. And, you know, who's the young gentleman that is a student at SC?
That'd be me.
Yeah. So you know those people that go to film school at SC and they want to be producers or directors or actors, and they do everything right and they intern and they end up working as a waiter at TGI Fridays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not because they're not good, and it's not because they haven't done everything right. It's just really competitive and it's really hard. And so the thing that Mike always told me was get prepared to get a lot of no's. And if you're only going to get 1% of the jobs you apply for, then you better apply for 100, right? Now, that doesn't mean the first one might be yes, but you get your heart broken a bunch, and you got to work to improve, and you got to be tough mentally. And it doesn't matter if you're in play-by-play or you want to be a sports anchor and you want to move up in a new market or a sideline reporter. You know, some of my best friends now are young ladies that are sideline reporters. And they're scared. They're like, what happens when I turn 30? Am I still going to be able to do this? Is there going to be a 23-year-old former Miss Georgia coming out of the UGA comm program? And the answer is yes, right? Georgia's pumping out about 6 of those bells a year. And so and that's just Georgia. And it's really hard. And so you just got to be really good, be a great person. And those are the kind of things that Mike told me about. I think most of you probably know I went to Syracuse and had a wonderful experience there. Love the university and the people who I went to school with. And they're still some of my closest friends. And got hired, I was 22 at Virginia Tech and stayed there for 27 years. Went to UCLA for a year. Was not the right fit for me. And while I was there, I was speaking with the ESPN people about if I left, would they use me? They said yes. And then the Virginia Tech people had always wanted to start an academic program. And I said, well, I flew back and I said, it's going to take a lot of money because we looked at what some other schools are doing, including SC, but mostly Syracuse and Oklahoma State and Georgia and some others, Miami, Fordham. You know, there's some things that a Northwestern can do that we can't. But there's a lot of things we can do that Syracuse can't. And so I knew the school intimately, and we put together a program, and it is, we started our 5th year in the fall. It is freaking kicking ass. And we've got a lot of young ladies and guys that are doing great work and getting better. And I'm excited about the future of it. And I'm concerned about the industry like everybody else. If you're a writer or a broadcaster, and now post-pandemic, regardless of what you're in, every industry is changing, whether you're an airline pilot or a hotel owner, right? You guys are pretty much aware of what's going on with our economy right now. But it'll come back. Sports is going to come back, and they're always going to need announcers. And I never feel like I've worked a day. It's hard work. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. And so I've seen a lot of you guys. I've seen your preparation. I see how you're trying to learn to get better. And this group here, for those of you who I know and the fact that you're here today, I don't think we're going to have to worry about you working really hard to do this. So it's funny. I mean, we can talk all you want about how to call a game and how to put on makeup and how to custom mold an IFB to your ear. We can do that, or we can talk about the stuff that really makes a difference, which is being a really good person and working hard. And so many of the things that make a great athlete valuable to his or her team make a broadcaster good to his or her team too. Being a good teammate, working well with others, taking the blame when it's your fault, even if it's not, giving credit to other people, even if they don't deserve it. The little things that make a great teammate help in broadcasting too. So it's a great career, guys. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be some no's, like I said, but think about your all-time favorite movie, and maybe Adam Sandler got the lead, and then think about who else might have auditioned for the role and didn't get it. It's actors too, so you don't always get the part, but you got to keep coming and get better and work to improve, and it can be a really fun career. It really is. So, how about some questions?
Yeah, all right, that's Bill. So questions. We start, if you have them. If you don't feel comfortable, you can certainly raise your hand. You go to your name in the right-hand section of of your screen and click the hand icon. If you would rather not ask them on live video, you can certainly put them in the chat. We have our first one from Kyle. How is the transition from being the voice of the Hokies to working games with a lot of different teams at ESPN?
That's a great question. Well, there were two transitions. Number one, it was going completely to TV. I've done radio. I've done a bowl game for ESPN Radio each of the last few years too, but mostly my ESPN stuff's TV. So that's completely different than the voice of the team, voice of the Hokies or voice of the Bruins at UCLA. So you have to try to be completely objective. And because what they do for us is we'll go in, if it's a football game, we'll go into the city on a Thursday and we'll meet with the coaches. And we're in their rooms, their meeting rooms with the head coach and the coordinators, and they tell you everything. Here's what we're going to do. I'll give you an example of I did a game a few years ago. I'm not going to tell you the school, but the starting quarterback broke curfew. They found him at his girlfriend's place. He had a morning meeting, and he'd missed the Thursday morning meeting, and they found him at his girlfriend's place, and there was like Corona bottles and other. There was a bong, so they announced that he was missing the game with a sore shoulder. There was nothing wrong with his shoulder. They just suspended him, but they didn't want to embarrass the kid. He let his teammates down, and the team knew. And so sometimes you have to kind of, you're the journalist, but they told you in confidence. And then you go from to the hotel of the visiting team, and they tell you everything. So you get a lot of inside information, and you try to put together a good show. Whereas I think when you're the voice of the team, sometimes you find yourself maybe pulling for that team, and your audience is clearly 90%. You know who they want to win, and so you might approach the broadcast a little different.
Dylan Pescator is our next question asker.
Hello, Bill. My question today is going to be, so I'm more of a hockey guy like Jake, and I do a little bit of football as well. But, all the interest in football and basketball, is it key to go to those sports or maybe go to sports that not many people pay attention to get experience?
Do everything. My first sport coming out of Syracuse was lacrosse. It was May of 1987, and I did a bunch of lacrosse games. And that's how I got on. Even before I started at Virginia Tech, I was doing lacrosse games on TV there, and then for ESPN way back in the mid-'80s. And it's a huge way. I think if you ask Anish, kind of the same thing. ESPN hired him to do lacrosse, and now he's doing everything. Same thing for a couple of other guys. Like Jay Alter got in totally doing lacrosse. Everybody wants to do, the NFL.
Tirico did.
College football. Yeah, so know everything. And, you never know what you might have to do. Remember, Mike Emmerich had to do water polo at the Olympics, and he was great at it. Principles are kind of the same.
I would second that. I did 10 different sports this year, and I tell you, I know nothing about squash. I know nothing about field hockey. I know not enough about volleyball, so just do what you can.
Yeah, the skills are the same, whether it's the preparation of it or the showbiz ad living part of it. And our last assignment in our play-by-play class for the semester at Virginia Tech was do play-by-play around the house. And people had to take their phones and find something ordinary and then call the play-by-play of it. Someone shopping at their local supermarket, or someone Grant did the play-by-play of his dog taking a crap. Evan did a play-by-play trying to do math projects. Another young lady did play-by-play of her younger brother trying to pull his tooth out. And you had to fill 3 to 5 minutes of just something common in one take. Can you ad-lib it? And she did a great job. And she's a student athlete at Virginia Tech. She's a scholarship athlete, but she's in our class. And she did a great job with it. So as many sports as you can do, the better.
We're going to keep it in New Canaan with Ian Nicholas.
When you brought that up, Bill, I was thinking, Joe Buck on Twitter is trending. Remember him and his young child and his wife. And he was commentating his child just with his wife. I remember that, and everyone went nuts. So that's great that you're bringing that into the classroom. But I remember also when you were introducing yourself and talking about your career, you mentioned how people in this business, you have to be a good person, and you have to do things sometimes that you wouldn't feel comfortable doing to show you're a team player. So I guess I would say, or I guess my question is, how when you're meeting a young broadcaster, like when you recently met Aiden in person earlier this year, or just in general when you're meeting someone in high school or college who's really dedicated, and maybe they show you a reel or they show you some of their work, what's the first thing you see or notice about that person? What do you have to nail in a first impression, not just on a reel, but just in person, that you think stands out to you the most when you hear them or when you see them in person?
I'm trying to think. I think whenever you're going to meet someone for the first time, regardless of what it is, probably the rules of being on a fraternity would, firm handshake, good posture, have a nice smile, don't look schlocky, right? In terms of a reel or a resume reel or a demo tape, that's a little bit different. I will say this, and we talk about this in class too. Always have
gum,
Altoids or some scope. You don't want to meet somebody and they smell like they hadn't brushed their teeth, and it's so funny. Coach Beamer and I used to interview Coach Beamer every week, and his office had a bathroom in it, and we would before the interview we would both go in and wash our mouths out with scope. And I would have brushed my teeth only an hour before, but it became like a tradition.
Yeah,
just out of respect. If you look good and every advantage you can give yourself. Now, in terms of the demo tape and those kind of things, this is a whole class that we do at Tech too. Announcers don't hire announcers. What we look for isn't necessarily what a producer or a human resources person or a news director or a CP is going to look for to hire somebody. So you've got to really think through what's on your reel. It's nice to have other play-by-play guys look at your stuff, but inevitably, if you have a producer look at it, they're going to give you a totally different viewpoint of it, and you're going to start from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
What do you look for on a high school kid's reel versus a reel of someone you're teaching versus a reel of someone who's been in the business 4 to 5 years already?
I never saw a high school kid's reel till yours. And now I've seen Alex's. I've seen 10 of them now. So I'm blown away by how many people want our jobs. So if you guys would like to, could I suggest a career in dentistry? You get to, you get to spray water at people. Be a dentist. I would, yeah. Clearly the maturity, as good as you guys are now at 16 to 20, you get better if you work. You're better 20 to 25, and then you're better 35 to 40. You do get better. And if you go back and even if you watch some of Joe Buck's work from when Joe started at ESPN, and if you go back and look at his stuff, he looks really raw. So I think we understand young people in the business are for the most part really raw, but what comes through is the passion. And so what I look for specifically are production elements. Are the edits clean? Is it sloppy? Is the audio quality good? There's nothing that's worse than a demo with bad audio quality, because that means the person who put it together, his or her ear doesn't pick up on that. And if they don't know what sounds bad, I don't know that I would want to hire them. So we spend an awful lot of time. We had 7 of our tech students apply for the Jim Nance Award, and which is going to be awarded here, or at least announced at the end of May. And one of the things we talked about was, I think my best game was this game, but it didn't sound good. The audio was bad. You would say I can't use it, and that's why when you set your gear up, if you're doing it on your own, make sure there's no hum. Make sure you know how to use your gear so that it sounds good.
Next question comes from Carlo Jimenez.
Hey, Bill. Thanks again for coming on and doing this with us. I just had a question. Like, when you go back and listen to your own tapes, what are some things you look for or areas you try to focus on when critiquing yourself?
All right, so this is a really great question because this year, in addition to my ESPN TV, I did some Westwood One NCAA basketball. And they approach things a little bit differently. We didn't get to do the NCAA tournament, by the way, which was a total bummer. But when you do a game for them, one of the things that they're really insistent on is they cut the game up for highlights. And so if you listen to Jim Nance do a game, back up, Kevin Harlan. I don't know why I said Jim. If you listen to Kevin Harlan do a Westwood One game, every play he approaches as if it could be the highlight of the game. And so when you call a basketball game for Westwood One, you have to sell every play and give the score before your analyst gets in. And that was something that sometimes I would listen to my stuff and I'm like, that was a good call, but I didn't give the score, or I let my analyst pop in. So that pops out. And then the other thing, and this probably makes sense to do even if you're not doing national games, is that always give the team, don't just give names of players. Don't assume that every one of your fans listening knows the name of everybody on your team and the opponent. Just because you've done the preparation and you know everybody, and some of your fans do, it's okay to say, and the rebound comes to so-and-so of Georgetown, or the rebound pulled down by the Hoyos, Carlo Jimenez, right? Always give the team. And that's something that I've picked up on. It really helps me. Use their nickname, that kind of thing. Because otherwise, sometimes when you listen to a tape, for me, I'm listening to a high school tape, you don't know who any of the 10 people on the court are, right? But don't assume that everyone listening knows everybody on both teams also. So I pick up on those kind of things.
I have a question that I've been thinking about recently. When you're listening back to yourself, how do you learn to stop hating the sound of your own voice?
I think that just the more you hear it, you get more comfortable with it. You won't hate it when you're 30. You won't. It's just a matter of just getting used to it.
Our next question from our resident soccer broadcaster, Kyle Dombach.
There we go. So I just have to. I mean, I'm in Germany, as I've said before, and I'm considering coming back to the U.S. or working for a U.S. broadcaster, but staying here in Germany. So my big question is, how can I bring my German experience to an American audience?
I don't know the answer, but I know people who do. I don't know, particularly in the world of football, in European football, is the passion is incredible, and people that work in international production would be the people to probably get to know. So for example, what's the German sports network?
There are a couple. Like one of the big ones is Datzone. Like that's getting really big here. There's also Sky, which is basically kind of like a mix between HBO and ESPN. Like they usually have like all the broadcasting rights to the Bundesliga, but with it coming back next week, there's actually going to be some broadcasts on free television, like their NBC, CBS, ABC.
I would say, for example, like in the U.S., like in Miami, like Telemundo and Univision, they do, those are the Spanish language. They do a lot of the South American soccer, and obviously Sky Sport in Europe does, a lot of that. That's a great question, and I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe, find out who produces those games. Maybe it's a packager of some sort. It's who's doing them for those networks.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big reasons that I'm asking this is because I'm not trying to force my way in, but ESPN is going to have the broadcasting rights next season. It's like It's like I'm trying to go who to talk to, this and the other.
Well, for ESPN, that's different. That's they already have their soccer talent.
Yeah.
Those guys, and they're really good, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not trying to force anybody out. Not trying to barge my way in.
But there's so many there's so many of these other. I mean, on my cable, you go up to the high, channel 400 and 404. You see those games from cricket from Pakistan in English. Who's producing that? There are a lot of people there. I mean, look at the population of India and Pakistan. Those are massive. Billion people live in India. There's a lot of people watching. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've got time for a few more questions if anybody has questions they would like to ask.
Yeah, Bill. It's kind of a silly question, but if there was one thing that you could ever redo or do over again in your career, what would that thing be?
Wow, you guys are asking. You guys could host your own interview shows. These are some deep questions today. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I would do anything differently. I mean, there's always choices that you make, where to go to college or what to do as soon as you get out of college. When I graduated, I had a choice to do. I could have stayed in Syracuse and done some games. I could have stayed in Syracuse and worked for Channel 9, or I could have left to go do games. And I knew the market there. I could have been a TV anchor in Syracuse for 40 years. I don't think I'd have done it, but there's always choices, and the thing is, no matter what choice you make along the way, you can always, if you don't like the choice, it's not permanent. You can get off. It's like driving down the interstate again. Another silly, stupid metaphor, right? You can take the next exit and get off and get back on the right way. So, being involved at Virginia Tech has been a really good thing for me. I think you know, and it's a really cool place where people care about each other, and it's a good fit for me. And for those of you that are debating college choices, I hope you'll do some research on what we're doing. How was that for the plug?
It was definitely a good answer. Like, I don't know how I would answer that honestly, but yeah.
All right, we got Carlo again.
I got another one for you, Bill. I know a lot of us here, like pretty young people, trying to find our voice.
Yeah.
One thing I've struggled with personally is trying to not like force myself to sound too deep. You know what I mean? Develop my voice, but have it be natural. Do you have any tips on that?
Well, this is the number one question you get. A young guy that graduated from Syracuse a couple of years ago reached out really early this morning, like at 1 a.m, like, help me, my voice sucks. And he sent me a tape. Listen to I'm gasping for breath. You know, I think, okay, so your voice is like a musical instrument, okay? And it is a musical instrument, right? Barbara Streisand doesn't know how to play a musical instrument, but she's one of the great musicians ever because her or Celine Dion, right? They know how to, and the more you play your instrument, the better you get at it, the more comfortable you get at it with your tone and with your inflection and your breathing. I think that people that are in any type of acting or singing, choir or concert choir, anything like that, and understand how to breathe, seem to have less of a problem with this. I think that if you know how, even if you suck at singing, which obviously I do, but at least if you have some experience with it, that seems to help people. You can take there are voice coaches that'll work with you. You can breathe. You'll hear the same thing. Breathe through your diaphragm. You want to come from down here. Don't talk through your throat. You don't want to be nasally, right? You hear that. But it's finding how to play your voice, because clearly not everybody has a great voice. Not everyone is blessed with great pipes. But some of the great announcers ever don't have great pipes. It's not a prerequisite, and it will help, obviously, right? It helps, but you can get better at that, and through practice and experience, and there are breathing exercises, but the more you play your instrument, the better you get at it.
All right, let's go out to Chicago with Alex.
Hi. So, when you're broadcasting games and your students who have homework, what's the best way, do you think, to balance both getting your homework done and going to school, but also calling games? Like, how do you balance broadcasting and being a student?
That was a hard one for me, and I'm sure it's a hard one for a lot of you guys too. But it's really important, and here's the reason. The better you understand everything, including the arts and the humanities and science and politics and economics, the better you are at those things, the better broadcaster you will be. So I'll give you a perfect example. In the play-by-play class the last couple of weeks, we've had questions. Who is the governor of California? That's a question in a play-by-play class. There was a list of 5 movies. Which one did Quentin Tarantino not direct? Who is Carol Baskin? These are questions that I put on quizzes in my play-by-play class, because I don't think there's any question. If there's one thing in common that all the network guys have, is their knowledge of things outside of sports is so vast, and that Mike Tirico can talk politics with you, and Johnny Weir can talk fashion with you, and you know what I'm saying? You want to be able to have dialogue about other things, and if some wacko is raising tigers and it's a Netflix series and everyone's watching, and you're broadcasting baseball, you'd be foolish not to know what that is, right? That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And at the same time, and I'm not saying that you're getting on the air and being political, But you better know if California has more pro teams than any other state in the country. 18 pro teams. Okay? 18 professional major league teams. So if their governor comes out and says they're not going to have pro sports in the fall, that's of note. So you can't go on the air and go, oh, Gavin Newsom said there's going to be no sports. You can't say, who's Gavin Newsom? Right? I'm not saying you need to know all 50 governors, but you better know who the governor of the the guys that are going to make decisions in California and New York and Florida and even Illinois, right? Who's your governor?
J.B. Pritzker.
Right. Just know what's going on. And yeah, you have to know the sports stuff too. So that if Tom Brady signs with the Bucks and Gronkowski comes out of retirement, you need to be able to put 2 and 2 together. Absolutely. You have to know all the sports stuff too. But you also have to know that Florida governor says you can't have sports. And who is Ron DeSantis? You just got to know it. And so being great in school will make you a better broadcaster. I can't say that enough. That is so huge because you don't want to be tunnel vision in just sports. If all you know is sports, if all you can talk about is sports, then you're going to have a great 45-year career as the voice of a New York Penn League baseball team. Your play-by-play might be good, but you got to be able to do other things than just talk about baseball.
Thank you.
How are your grades, Alex?
Do we have any questions from New Canaan? Dylan?
I got one more for Bill before we head out. So, Bill, you talk about having a great knowledge in all things, and that's something that we all like to work on. But how would you really use that knowledge in a broadcast? Let's say you're doing a baseball game, you have a lot of time to kill.
Yeah.
How do you suggest filling that time? Do you suggest using that knowledge? Just wondering about that.
Yeah, let's say you're filling time and it's a 14-1 ball game in the 5th inning, and a guy comes up and he's from Tempe, Arizona, and you just happen to know something that's going on in Tempe because you just happen to read about it in the news. Or there's a famous rock and roll band and their lead singer is from Tempe, Arizona, or something along those lines. And so you're able to fill in the gaps. I'm not saying you're going to do physics on the air. I'm not saying that.
I hope I don't do physics on air because I'm not good at that.
No.
Say that.
But I'll be honest with you. I used physics on the air once. So West Virginia had a football tailback by the name of Wes Ours, O-U-R-S. And they listed him at 5'6", 5'7", but he didn't look it. And he was a solid 300 pounds. He looked like a Flintstones character. And we couldn't tackle him. And so how is a little guy, 5'7", knocking people over? And I remembered on the air during the course of our broadcast, force F equals MA. Who remembers what F equals MA is?
Force equals mass times acceleration.
Right. So I used that on the air, and Bernard, my color guy, looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? But I must have got like 30 emails that day. Like, hey, thanks for looking out to us science nerds that love sports. Yeah. Force is mass times acceleration. So he was a short little guy, but he got going, and they couldn't stop him. It was like trying to tackle a boulder. And so you can always bring something to the broadcast, whether it's current affairs, pop culture. I think pop culture is huge, especially now. Like if you guys, I highly recommend watching SportsCenter on Snapchat and watch how they present it, because it's tailored for kind of your generation. It's totally different from what they're doing on TV. A lot of pop culture references, a lot of pop culture in their writing, lyrics of songs, things like that. So I think it's really cool to be able to incorporate that into your show, whether it's at the Sports Center or whether it's a game.
Do we have any more questions before we say goodbye to Bill? Nobody?
Thank you, guys.
New
This has been
Canaan,
fun.
Aiden?
Oh, we got one more from Ian. I didn't know if you hadn't figured out how to lower your hand yet.
Figured it out. Just to reflect on that last point from Bill, I remember Dylan was doing color. I was doing play-by-play for the game for football, and the other team went for 2. And Dylan said, "That's an analytics thing." And Dylan starts spurring off about analytics, and he says it's a math thing. And then I say, "Well, I just dropped out of math class, Dylan." So I know that is like kind of filling it. You have to be able to be more than just a sports guy. I think that's perfectly said by you. But I guess the question I also have is, I know you've worked with so many different teams over the years and so many different coaches and players that you've had to cover. What is the biggest thing in growing your relationship with players and coaches before games, when you do those pregame interviews and during the week with those meetings? What are the biggest questions you want to hit in those meetings, and how do you preserve that relationship so that you're asking questions that will help you, but also, preserving a professional working relationship with them?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. You have to be really empathetic in those interviews, because these coaches are under incredible pressure, and if they've come off a couple of losses in a row, you have to just assume the worst. You're meeting with a coach at 9 a.m, and you don't know. Maybe he got into an argument with his wife before he left the house, because he got into an argument with his daughter because he doesn't like her boyfriend the night before, and the dog puked all over and he's in a bad mood. And then he comes in at 6 a.m, and he had to suspend 2 of his players, and they've lost 4 in a row. And then, me and Golick walk in with smiles on our faces, trying to be happy.
Yeah.
And the last thing he wants to do is sit and talk to anybody, let alone us. So you have to be really empathetic and just try to figure out. You may ask, like, simply, how you doing? And if you know the coach, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
We had a coach this year. We walked in and we said, "How you doing?" He goes, "I hate my effing team."
Wow.
And they were ranked in the top 10 at the time of the game. I want to get something that I can use. So before we go in, I'll have a list of things that I just want to get clarified. Sometimes it's simple stuff every game, like, is anybody going to throw a pass that we don't think, right? How far can your kicker kick a field goal? Who's impressed you the most this week in practice? You've lost 4 in a row? Who stood out this week? And things like that. But other times you want to ask really good questions, like, have you talked to anybody? You guys have lost 4 in a row. Are you talking with any of your mentors? And he'll say, you know what? Yeah, I reached out to so-and-so, and he's not in coaching anymore, but I called him this week anyway. And inevitably, you're writing stuff down. So just being interested. So you guys have asked so many good questions today because you are interested in the topic. And I think the same thing goes through if you're ever visiting with a coach. Do your homework. They'll appreciate that. Ask good questions. But be really interested in what's going on with their team. And sometimes it's not going to matter. Like, there's some coaches that don't want to do it. They want to. They're. You sit down and they're looking at their watch, or they're answering questions like this. They're on their phone. They're like, "Dude, if you don't want to be here, send us your linebacker coach or somebody." But, but for the most part, 90% of the time they're great. And usually the ex-players break the ice a little bit. Whether it's Golick or whoever I'm working with. So
awesome.
Be curious. Be interested.
Got it.
Bill, we appreciate your time. We'll do the same thing with Stephen earlier. Advice to those that are here and listening and eager to make it in the sports business.
I heard his answer. Can you just replay it? He was really good. It's the same in every business. You work really, really hard. Don't get discouraged when you get a no. Don't get discouraged when you get fired. Don't get discouraged when you blow a call, because we all do it, right? In fact, Richard Deitch, who I recommend everybody follow, by the way. Is everybody following Richard Deitch on Twitter and reading him? I hope you are.
Yeah, I mean, I have to mute some of his political takes, but yeah, I follow.
But he had a really good story about announcers messing up, and it's whether you're doing high school games as a high school student or doing the Super Bowl, you're going to mess up, and you can't get mad. You can't get mad at yourself, and you can't get mad at another person. So if I'm doing a game, and I've worked with the same spotter for years, and Team A is driving, and they're on the 5-yard line. They're about to score, and they run a little play-action pass, and the ball gets intercepted and run back 95 yards. And my spotter points at the wrong guy, and I say the wrong name. I can't get mad at him. And that's where it's like a quarterback throws the perfect pass, the receiver bobbles it, and the DB gets the interception. The interception goes on the quarterback's record, not right. And that goes back to you can't let it get to you if you make the mistake or somebody else. Now you try to fix it, but and you have to clean it up on the air. But always be mature and don't let little things get to you, because there's a lot of little things that can go wrong. But overcoming them is the challenge, and that's what's so fun about it, right? Maybe your broadcast booth isn't a great vantage point, or maybe it's cold, or maybe the rosters don't sync up on the team, or we don't have rosters, or you can't read the numbers. So there's always things that can be a negative. Don't ever let anything be a negative, because there's 1,000 people that would trade places with you, right? Even if you're just doing a high school game, there's 1,000 kids that would trade places with you guys. So be a good person and enjoy every minute of it. Every minute of it.
Bill, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much.
See you guys.
All right. We're planning on doing one of these next week. Jake and I will let you know. If you'd like to watch a recording of this and kind of relive some of Bill's answers, you can certainly do so. We'll upload both of the interviews with Nelson and Bill Roth tonight. So we appreciate everybody coming. That's basically it, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.
And